Thank you very much for kind introduction. I'm TANIOKA. We have heard a very heavy story from Mr. Shishido, and I remember what happened on that day, and I tried to remember what I did on the moment when 3/11 happened. Since yesterday, this symposium started in the morning session today. I have to think that I'm really fortunate to be invited on this symposium, and at the same time, I feel how important it is for the people who control information to manipulate information under the good name of risk communication. They hid the information and they disclose only the convenient so-called fact. And actually, behind the scene, there is the information manipulation happened. Not the actual culprit, however, the victims are pointing their fingers at each other, and this is a trick we have been put because of the information manipulation. Back then, I was the Diet Parliament member of the ruling party of the Democratic Party of Japan, meaning that my position was totally different. You regard me as the one of the culprit. However, in order to enact the act to support victims, being one of the culprits was very important. When 3/11 happened, just like you, it was very shocking to me. When I talked about the colleague, the parliament members, we frequently talked that what to do with the spent fuel loads, because whenever the actual work has been implemented, there were people exposed to the radiation, and it seems like a Pandora's box. Because if I really seriously take up this issue, I somewhat know that there is no career as a parliament member. And I was also the educator. Therefore, as a politician, I know that if I take up this issue, there is no future as a politician. So I now realize that I didn't pick up the issue of the nuclear power generation. However, then 3/11 happened. I realized what I did not do rather than I think that what I did do. And then I realized the importance of what I did not do. And then, needless to say, because we didn't raise any voices, there was no preparation at all on the side of the government of Japan. If we wanted to do anything, there was no legal framework at all. However, when it comes to manipulation by a certain group of people toward a certain group of people happened quite an early phase after 3/11. Now I can tell it. For instance, in the autumn, there is a fact disclosed in the autumn. However, just following the example of Chernobyl, Ukraine, under the instruction of the Ministry of Health, many children were evacuated by using many buses, chartered buses, and one vice minister said it, and then I got the fact from TEPCO too. However, at the public office of Prime Minister, including Prime Minister himself, there was no proposal made to evacuate the children by using buses under the excuses that there are so many things they had to do, and I believe they didn't want to cause any panic, including the major streets and roads in Tohoku area. The many traffic roads were disrupted, and I understand that they didn't want to do any panic, and there was a tacit agreement not to talk about such an evacuation plan. However, as one of the members of the ruling party, I had to think about now what we to do. Because of tsunami, the one area was detached from any other parts of Japan, and we didn't know anything. Even a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, there were tens of thousands of vacation points, and we didn't have enough information about the shelters, and we didn't know where to bring what. That is the situation immediately after the 311, and but turmoil, nobody thought about the evacuation of children. That's what I wanted to believe. However, it's not the case, and I knew it in the autumn. There was a talk of the evacuation of children. There was a discussion by the government of Japan. I knew it in the autumn of 2011, and then as one of the members of the ruling party members, it was really a shock to me, and then I determined not to be the culprit anymore. And after the enactment of the act to support the victims, I determined to resign the member of the Democratic Party of Japan because of this fact. I don't know what do you think about. However, as I mentioned, evacuation by using buses. At the same time, around on the 15th of March, one parliament member said that there must be a speedy system. However, by then nobody knew speedy. And then some other parliament members said that we needed to collect information through monitoring activities. And then back then, I was a member related to the Ministry of Education, but we didn't know anything about that. And then after studying that, and several weeks after that, I have insisted that we have to measure the strontium. Till then, I even now claim that we have to measure and monitor strontium. However, such a measurement is not implemented. I know it's difficult to get an accurate measurement of strontium. However, the 1 month after or 2 months after the 311, maybe there was no room to do that. But now that 3 years have passed, and with advanced technologies, it's extremely difficult, but it's not impossible. Actually, strontium remains in the contaminated water, and it's proven by the measurement of TEPCO. There's a ways of measurement. However, when it comes to the impact to the health, especially for the health impact on children, we have to know it, and for 5 years passed. Then the strontium measurement is not possible. The cesium-137 is very, very difficult to measure. However, because I'm in charge of the decontamination, and that's one of the methods who has to protect the health of children, strontium can be sneakingly entered into the teeth or bones of a child, and once strontium is taken up by our body, it does not go away different from the cesium-137. We have to know the impact of the strontium. However, still such a very dangerous radioactive nuclides of strontium is not measured. And then the budget issue. Or those who where the parliament members can see the so-called rotating doors to the private sector, they were quite fast in taking action. Decontamination is another example. This is related to the environment work, and there is a so-called the decontamination bubble in the environmental area. There is the civil engineer work related to the decontamination, and I know there is such thing as decontamination booming, and where we can check and control. Then officials. You can check the number of officials. The budget is an important factor. However, one of the measures I'd like to present is how the people are assigned to each section. If you look at the head count in each section or department, you can see the priority of the government of Japan. For instance, in the environmental ministry, there were more than 270 new headcounts assigned to the department working for decontamination in the environmental ministry, and many of them are related to civil engineers, meaning that the officials can see the rotating door to the private sectors after resigning the ministry, to 70 or more than that. And then including math, they said that they have to take action for the groundless reputation, and there are many new headcounts assigned. And what's most interesting to me is the assignment of people to the Ministry of Finance as well as the Ministry of the Consumer Protection. For example, liquor or the sake is under the jurisdiction of the MOF, Ministry of the Finance. And there are 6 to 8 new headcounts assigned to check the safety of the liquor, sake. And then when it comes to the Consumer Protection Agency, they are assumed to ensure the safety through food, and there are 3 headcounts. However, as to the liquor, 6 to 8 people are assigned, although liquor is consumed by the adults older than 20 years, and then food that's not consumed by any people, including mothers and children. However, assignment people to such an important agency of consumer protection, just 3. Now you see the hidden agenda of the government of Japan, and the priority can be seen transparently even from your eyes, and you see what the government of Japan is doing. From the back side of the vaccine, I can see there is a really hidden agenda of the government. And it's really chagrin to me because no matter how strongly I raise the voice, all of those claims falls onto the deaf ears. Then Chernobyl, after 5 years after the Chernobyl accident, the law was enacted, and in that related law, applicable law, the affected people themselves have to make their own decisions because of the right of the option is admitted. For example, the option to live there or the option to evacuate. It's up to the residents, and if they determine to live there, there is a right to ensure safe food and water. And if they determine to go out, then they prioritize the ration of the food and education is considered by the government of Russia. And the so-called gray zone from 1 to 5 in those gray zone area, or if the dose level is beyond above 5, the mandatory evacuation is applied. Since March, I have observed what the government of Japan have taken, and beyond the Iron Curtain, we cannot see them. However, the right of the general public was not admitted, and there is no such thing as the human rights because they lived beyond the Iron Curtain. However, we are inferior to the Russian people, and it's really shocking to me. Think about it. 25 years ago, by the way, there is a 25-year interval existed between Chernobyl and 3/11, and what Russia has done 25 years ago is better than what the government of Japan do in terms of the humanitarian aspect. And then human rights. We just ignore human rights. We looked down on Russia because of the lack of human rights. However, what we did is actually inferior to the Russian government. And therefore, I believe there are some legal framework at the culmination, such as the Act of the Protection of the Survivors. At any rate, now we have to enact to ensure the rights of victims. And back then, we tried to enact many related laws, such as the criteria or the radioactive nuclide, the content in food, litigation, and the labels, and so on and so forth. And the bureaucrats did not want to touch upon that, and the bureaucrats did not want to help them out. And then I believed that we parliament members were alone to enact related bills. We were criticized as slow. However, in fall and autumn, I was asked whether or not I wanted to enact related legal framework. I was one of the members of project teams, and my supervisor asked this to me. You wanted to do this, and if you wanted to do this, you have to put your political career on the line. And I said yes. The other thing I was told that you have to get a movement, or you have to garner the support of the general public. You should not think that this can be done only within the beltway, or you have to garner the support non-Nagatacho or non-beltway people. This was the advice I got. And then I encountered the comrades in Safran, and including Mr. Yodogawa. There were many survivors of 311. In addition to that, needs Mr. Shishido, Chika-chan, and young generation whom I met. It's told that we have to listen to the voices of communities, and then usually the mayor of villages and cities, usually what you hear as representative voices are really old guys, the voices such as the guys in the 60s and the 70s. However, what we have to listen to is the future generation because they live on in the future. Younger children and their mothers, these opinions were not incorporated into the policies at all. However, we intentionally invited those people to get their feelings. There's no emotions on one hand, and there's the hopes and desires on the other, and these are the basis for our enactment of related bills.
とにかく健康の子どもの健康の問題という形でかなり法律を作ろうとしてまた実際にその公明党だとか自民党だとかっていろいろ子どもの給食を進めていく関して考えるとで私たちは与党でしたからそういうものを全部枝として受け入れることができるそういう法律を作ろうとしたんです。いずれ一つの法律を守る必要です。で、この問題はその生活の多岐に分かる問題になる。避難をする職業の問題になり、住居の問題になり、食べ物の問題になり、医療になり、その医療の中で治療と検査と予防というふうに分かれていくような問題になる。この枝というものをすべて受け入れることができる。柱は何になるこの基本的な戦略の中で考えられることがいくつかあるので、それを申し上げたいと思います。
things that we felt had to be a part of the basic policy, so I'd like to share with that. Number one, it could not be limited to just Fukushima. They tried to make this just about one prefecture. This is only about Fukushima. It's not about anywhere else. And that actually covered up the whole entirety of the issue. That's not true because the radioactive plume isn't staying away from other prefectures. It will go across the prefectural borders. So, of course, we had to take into account how everybody could be affected. So, the title of the law is actually very long. TEPCO, nuclear accident affected residents, children, and etc., 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 law to support them. So the title of the law is very long, but we intentionally did not include the word Fukushima in the law because it's not about Fukushima, it's about all of us. It's about all of us in Japan, and it's about everybody here who is a global citizen. This is something for the future generation. And there was another thing that was altered in Fukushima. So, following after Shishido-san, we were told that 20 millisieverts is okay or 100 millisieverts is completely fine. When they were talking about that on the front lines, back in Nagatacho, in the country's capital, we were hearing a different story. And the regulatory body's chief, Dr. Madarame, said that schools would be resumed if it was 10 millisieverts per year. We were fighting for 5, all of us lawmakers. The ICRP dictated that it needed to be 20 or below, and it had to be as low as possible. But for the especially sensitive people, including children, well, we needed to take special care of them. So we have about 4 times the risk for girls who are 10 to 12. So if the risk is fourfold, then we should try to make it 1/4 the risk of 20 millimeters. And the radiation control area is usually using a criteria of 5 millimeters or 5 millisieverts. So we were trying desperately to go with 5. And in our committee discussions, we were trying very hard for that. Most of the lawmakers who were interested, who took an interest, were trying for that. But Madarame-san said that it was going to be 10, that he had tried and it would be 10. So I called a professor that I knew in Nagoya, and I said that they're coming down to 10. But the professor told me he still wanted it to be 5, so I tried. I said that I would try, but then the next day suddenly they made an announcement that it would be 20 millisieverts. So we were shocked, and we looked into it. We saw that Fukushima had done a monitoring of all of the school backyards, and there were 50-something schools that had problematic values. The Education Ministry decided to redo all of the tests. And apparently, if the criteria was 10 millisieverts, then most of the schools, the 50-something schools, would not be able to reopen. But if they decided that the criteria was 20, then all of the schools could reopen. So they needed to create a reality in which schools could reopen. If the criteria was 10, then many schools would not be able to reopen, and people would label Fukushima as dangerous. And Shishiro-san told us earlier what the prefectural city hall was instructing. So that's what happened. Our efforts were overturned, and they went with 20. When you're in Parliament, what you hear from the prefectures, these are all the regional voices. And the Education Ministry was using that as an excuse, saying that they could not ignore the voices of the local people. So I would like to ask that you all understand and remember that is the reason why we created this law, because all of you have a right to know. All of the victims have a right to know. We are certainly asking for disclosure of information. It's not just about cesium, it's also about the beta rays that need to be measured. So this calls for that. And scientifically, it says in the outset that scientifically there's no cause and effect that can be established. So thyroid cancer cannot be specifically tied to radioactive substances. Of course, we understand, because it is not possible to prove it scientifically, we want to be on the safe side, and that's the objective. If that is going to be an issue, then it is necessary to prove that something other than the nuclear substances, radioactive substances, are responsible for thyroid cancer. We are saying that we need to provide medical treatment. If somebody wants to evacuate, then they should be able to do that, and we need to provide the support. So the cause cannot be determined. Then all of you need to ask the question, can you say for sure that that is definitively not the cause? Now that the law has been passed, I wonder if it is helping. I wonder what we are missing. And I have some harsh words that I am about to share, so I hope that you will bear with me. This country, I believe to be a developed country and a great nation. But like most of us do not think of China as a superpower. and a developed country when it comes to human rights. And when it comes to dignity for individuals, I do not think that that is being upheld. For victims to hold down other victims or for victims to criticize other victims, under the belief that communities must not be divided, well, I'd like to point out that communities do not have the right. It is the individuals. Article 13 calls for the right of each individual to pursue happiness, and that's something that only each individual can do. So under this law, we ask that each individual make their own decisions, and the government must support that, regardless of what direction that is. However, when it comes to taking ownership and exercising that kind of sovereignty, I do not believe that we have caught up to the level that this law allows for. The Labor Standards Act is for the laborers, but there are fraudulent companies because people do not know enough about the law. There are not enough people who are literate in the way of this law. As for this child support law, we put our hearts into passing this law. If we were to be able to change it today, I think about often what more could we have done? And I think still that at that time this was the best that we could do. But as individuals, we all have the right to pursue our own happiness. I do not believe that the approach was wrong. But there was something that we as educators made a mistake. We have nurtured a whole legion of young people who follow what they are told. They are not able to think critically, to think scientifically, to think analytically, to make decisions, to feel empowered to make decisions on their own and to take ownership of their own rights. We have failed to educate our people in that way. I'm currently teaching at a university right now, but I believe that we are now definitely need to start educating our younger people so that they are able to take ownership. Thank you.